I love Transformer statues. And as a spoiler, this might be my new favorite. 1/10 scale Soundwave from XM Studio. Part of it may be because he was such a cool character growing up, arguably one of my favorite Hasbro toys, because he transformed into a cassette deck. That's right, probably 90% of people watching have no idea what a cassette deck is. As the Extreme channel is pushing towards 50,000 subscribers, these are just a few of the statues we're giving away on the journey there. If you want to know how to win one, stay tuned for later in the video. Hey guys, welcome to the Extreme channel where we are all about extreme collectibles, and as I said in the intro, we have a Transformer in front of us. So this is made by XM Studios, and it is an amazing piece of, as I said, one of my favorite characters growing up, Soundwave. So Soundwave is a Decepticon, or a bad guy Transformer. And XM Studio made this. They took a real-life version, which obviously he's not real, just like Santa. Sorry to spoil that for you. And they shrunk it down 10 times. That's what 1/10 scale means. Now, in the comics, Soundwave actually was kind of like the communications officer, but he was a lot more powerful than that. He could actually read minds of other Transformers and even humans. And he was one of my favorite characters because he is not alone. He has a bunch of minions with him. So not only do you get Soundwave, but you get Redbat and Ravage and Rumble and Laserbeak, because those were actually the cassette decks that went inside of him. And what a cassette is how we used to listen to music. I'm a little too young for 8 tracks, but growing up, all we had were cassette decks. And if you don't know what those are, hopefully you know what a VHS is, which is probably unlikely, but it's the music version of a VHS. That's how we bought music. We didn't have instant access to download it. We had to store those. If you don't want to listen to a song, it would take more than 1 second to get to the next one. You would actually have to fast forward to the next one, or even take the cassette deck out and flip it over. Now, another reason I absolutely love this statue is because not only do you get 5 characters in one, but it's done amazing. We're going to talk about that in the Extreme review today. And what XM Studios does with their pieces is they do a proximity piece, and this one actually finally makes sense. We're going to talk all about that. But first, let's talk about concept of this piece. Now, what XM Studios does is they take the Generation 1 Transformers, and there's always a lot of different variations, even of that Generation 1, but they modernize it a little bit, put their own twist on it, and I think they did an amazing job with this one. So on the bottom here, at the front, you see the proximity piece. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but they have a rock base, just like most of their pieces, with some Cybertronian elements, I always say that, and another destroyed machine or robot, almost looks like tank tracks. As you move up, you see Rumble at the front. So that's one of the cassette decks that actually comes out and transforms into a little minion of his. He's in a semi-action pose with Ravage jumping from the side. Almost looks like he's in mid-air. As you move up, there's a number of switch-out options we're going to talk about during design. But I have his tape deck open. Redbat is actually jumping out. He's actually hitting the eject button with his left hand. On his right hand, you could say this is 6 characters in one. He is actually holding Megatron, because remember, Megatron transforms into a gun, and that's an option we're going to look at. And he is attacking his opponent, and Laserbeak is flying above. Also looks like it's in mid-air. Totally cool concept, and what I love about the XM Studio pieces is they're kind of a mix between museum, which means like they're posing for a picture, and a little bit of dynamic action. Most recently, I actually got this Grimlock right here, which I absolutely love. But I'm gonna let you know right now, I think I like Soundwave better, and it's not just because of my nostalgic ties. So I love the concept. I love what they did with him. I think it's a 5 out of 5 on the concept. So incredibly well done. Now with the design, I think that's where this proximity piece comes into it. So what's cool about XM Studios is they include a proximity piece of what they actually transform into. Now typically, that doesn't scale the same as the actual robotic figure. However, this does, because he transformed into a cassette deck that was quite a bit smaller than him. So this actually logically makes sense Or for example, the Starscream piece right here that I absolutely love, it doesn't make sense when the jet is significantly smaller. Before we talk about the other design stuff, let's look at the unboxing and assembly. So it went from Singapore to LA, then to Miami, then to Cincinnati, and then finally to my home in the central US. And of course, customs had their way with it. Thankfully, nothing was broken. Had your traditional XM Studios box. 2 different layers. So this was the first layer. Everything unwrapped out of the wax and plastic. And the second layer had the body, the base. Base isn't too big. Since I was one of the early birds, I did get the plaque right here. You know, I'm not a huge fan of these. I think it's cool they offer them, but I don't need them. And then there was no art print, but it did have the assemblage booklet. I said assemblage because I think I read that. Alright, I said there's a number of display options. Now technically you could remove any of these extra characters, with the exception of Laserbeak. His leg is permanently attached to this cannon up here. So if you removed him, his leg would still be there. These you can remove, but they do leave unsightly keyholes. He only has one portrait right here, but it does have a pretty cool battery-operated light-up feature. His right hand can be pointing at his enemy, which I think is stupid. It went right back in the box. Or holding Megatron as his gun. Because I don't actually have the XM Studios Megatron piece. I do have a couple Megatrons from Prime 1 Studio. I have their OG, which doesn't scale the best with this. And of course I have their Bayformer. Now Soundwave was actually featured in the Michael Bay movies as a pretty badass guy in the third movie, The Revenge of the Fallen.
Soundwave acknowledges. Pursue her. Retrieve it. Soundwave reporting, Lord Megatron.
And I would love to buy a statue of him in that format. Now the tape deck on his chest, you can actually have it closed, which to me is no fun. Or you can have it open, with Redbat actually coming out. Definitely the way to go. Now with his left hand, you can actually have him pushing the eject button right here. Or you can have his left arm draped down to the side. Now supposedly you're supposed to put in this pretty awesome gun. But his ejector hand also fits in that, even though it looks kind of dumb. So I would never display that. Also on this proximity piece, the base is optional like it is on all their pieces. Some of them I have the base, some of them I don't. I should probably consolidate it. Let's try and measure him. Going to be kind of difficult. So if I had to say the widest point is about 20 inches. For exact dimensions, make sure to go to XM Studios' website. He is just over or under 29.5 inches. And depending on what you're going to say for the depth, I think the deepest part of the base at least is about 15 inches. And obviously Megatron's gun sticks out more than that. So definitely some great design features. Everything went together really well. You saw the assembly. And honestly, I don't know how I could improve it. So I think it's a 5 out of 5 on the design as well. Because while I said you can't take away the characters, I don't think you'd want to. Now we're going to go to the paint and sculpt. And they do some incredible stuff here. I wouldn't say it's as detailed as the Bayformers from Prime 1, but I don't think it needs to be. And there is still a ton of detail in this. Check it out. This guy is pretty incredible. Before we look at him, I just want to look at the gun switch out. There is so much intricate detail you're going to find in all of this, and I like how you can see the semblance of the robotic aspect. You can see some of the mechanisms and gears from what he transforms into. This gun, I think they did a nice job. You will see a lot of weathering on this, kind of that black that fades in with the rest of it. And you'll see some of that on the hands too, but fantastic looking gun. Proximity piece, so cool, even with the little eject button here. Decepticon symbol on the front. I really like the blue colors they use throughout him. Then you see just a lot of, like I said, different mechanisms throughout, whether it's, you know, vents or dials, switches. And really, the same on him as you see on that proximity piece. We'll come back to the base later, but see that black shading they used to kind of give him a weathered effect? That looks good. You see some pistons, some dials, some vents. So much intricate stuff all over him. And some of these areas look a little bit purple, honestly. And I think the gold and silver contrast it well. One thing about the back of the cassette player here, it almost looks like that might be his head. So I like how you can kind of see that in there. But really, really cool looking stuff. It just goes on some more pipes, hoses, coils, everywhere. And I think you can see a lot more of the mechanisms and machinery in here simply for the fact that the blue contrasts it well. And then there's even like some red trim here. And the paint's really clean. You don't see a lot of bleed over or anything like that. Let's look at the front of him really quick. Like on the inside, you can see the dreaded dials of the cassette player. You remember that? Awesome looking portrait. Laser beak up here, Decepticon symbol again. The holes where the cassette player go. They did a really nice job on him. Megatron's gun, or Megatron himself, I should say. Redbat coming out here. And I like that transition where he's still partly tape on the inside of a cassette tape. That's pretty cool. Rumble. Badass, stocked with his pistons here and his guns in the back. They all look pretty fierce. I like that. Ravage was my favorite. I remember that being the toy growing up. And he's pretty dark. Again, he's stacked out too, got his guns in back. I remember his tail would fold in to complete the final part of the cassette. But even tons of detail on these guys. Look at that. You really are getting a ton of characters in one. And lastly, the base. So this one, I think the rock looks a little bit better than some of the other ones. I think that brown rust aspect they gave gives it a little bit more color. You can't see a lot of the rock, though. So here is a destroyed tank or something of that nature that he defeated. You see the treads. I like that a lot, how it's literally falling off. And we didn't talk much about this, but I like how the base doesn't take up too much more room. I think they really maximized the space on this. Another reason we gave the design a 5 out of 5. Some type of booster over here. And then more almost Cybertronian parts. You assume this is something he destroyed. Probably another Transformer. This is really, really good. I'm digging everything about it. I think they knocked this out of the park. So much to look at. All right, paint. I love the contrasting colors. He's going to look fantastic next to the other pieces. If you want to see what that looks like, check out the Extreme Channel social media sites. The link in the description is below. I post stuff on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram. Really, paint, I think it's a strong 4 out of 5. Really impressive. And while there are a lot of dark colors, I think everything that contrasts lightens it up, and it's all pretty clean. Sculpt, I am really impressed with this guy. You know, I ended up giving the Grimlock a 4 out of 5 on the Sculpt. I would kind of renege my score on that. I think that's a 5 out of 5, and so is this. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5 on the Sculpt. Really impressed by this guy. Now we're going to talk about value. So I get all my XM Studio Transformer pieces from Cosmic Chase Collectibles, and I get a lot of my XM and Queen Studios from there as well. Highly recommend them. I probably would have been the first in the US to actually receive this statue if I didn't have that huge debacle with DHL, which isn't their fault. Extremely competitive prices, and I can't say enough about their customer service. There's a non-affiliate link in the description below if you want to check them out. So a big thank you to them. And I'm going to tell you, this guy is I'm just loving this guy. So he was definitely worth the value, which this cost 2,300 Singapore dollars. Now the Singapore dollar is about 76 cents on the US dollar, which means this was about 1,700 US, plus I think shipping was about 400 for the express shipping. So you are $2,000 into this piece, but like I said, there is a ton going on. And these seem to have pretty high resale values, especially at a lower edition size of $5.99. That's higher than some of the other ones, but I think it's still pretty good. I think this one is going to be a highly sought after one because it's so good. So I think the value is a 4 out of 5, even over that $2,000 price mark. Now, does this have the X factor? You know what? I think this is my new favorite Transformer statue. It is incredible. I love every part of it. It definitely has the X factor. It takes your breath away. And it's going to be the first Transformer statue you see when you come into my collection. So I'm extremely excited to see what he looks like over there. What do you guys think? Is he the best? Throw that in the comments below because that could win you a statue this year. We will be giving all of these statues away, plus additional ones at every 5,000 subscriber milestone. To win one of these statues, all you have to do is make sure you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, you've hit that bell notification, and then just drop a comment below. Every 5,000 subscriber milestone, we are going to do a random drawing and pick a random comment and give one of these statues away, plus some additional ones I'm not showing right now. The more videos you comment on, the higher your chances are to win. Thanks for tuning in to my first statue review of the year. We've already had tons of other videos come out. Make sure to check some of those. And if you like stuff like this, please hit that picture of me, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys really, really soon. We have some really cool upcoming videos. Take care.